Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I apologize for keeping you all waiting. Council President and I was at the funeral of a community giant, Miss Audrey Smith, who we lost last week. And so I just want to, in honor of her and her family, at this time, take a moment of silence for her. Audrey was someone that worked tirelessly in this community like Frederick Douglass. So I want to tell you all good afternoon and thank you very much for coming here today to City Hall as we unveil an artifact related to one of Rochester's most famous citizens, Frederick Douglass. Today, we are going to show you something that only a handful of people have seen, at least not since the early 1900s. I want to first acknowledge my partner in government, City Council President Loretta Scott, and Vice President Dana Miller, as well as Rochester's Public Library Director Patty Utoro, as well as Commissioner Marisol Lopez of our Youth and Recreation Department. We also have many distinguished guests here today, namely Dr. David Anderson, our resident Frederick Douglass expert. He's a founding member of the Black Storytelling League of Rochester and Aquaba, the Heritage Associates. We also have members of the Black Heritage Committee here today who bring us our wonderful Black History Month programs every year. We have committee members from the 150 Ancestors Project here. We have members of the Landmark Society here, the Frederick Douglass Resource Center, the Susan B. Anthony Museum and House, authors, artists, historians, and students. Thank you all for coming. Before I unveil the photo, I wanted to give City Council President Loretta Scott an opportunity to say a few words.
Good afternoon. It is indeed an honor to be here on this occasion. As the mayor mentioned, we just left a funeral for a community shero, as I call her. And it's always interesting when you listen to all the platitudes and the great things that you say about people when they're deceased. And just all truth, no question about it. But it's also very interesting to be here to continue to acknowledge and celebrate the history that we have in our rich city. We don't do it often enough. So having this occasion to do that is a blessing indeed. Welcome to City Hall.
City Council Member Carolee Conklin is also in attendance. Almost 121 years to this date, one of Rochester's most important citizens, the world-famous abolitionist, who spent his entire life working to put an end to slavery and then fought to the last days for equality for all, died in the entryway of his home in Washington, D.C. That was February 20th, 1895. Though he was 77 years old at the time, he was far from retired. Frederick Douglass had earlier that day attended sessions of the Women's Council and was set to deliver a lecture that evening at Hillside African Church near his home. It is through his numerous speeches, his books, letters, and newspapers, published right here in downtown Rochester, that we finally understand the essence of this great American. But along with his eloquent words, his powerful narratives, and the vast collection of documents left to us, there is another type of record of his life and work that boldly underscores his legacy. Frederick Douglass recognized the power of photography as the most democratic of arts and a crucial tool in the fight for social reform. The collection of photographs of Frederick Douglass is unlike any other American of his time. He was the most photographed man of the 19th century. In fact, more so than President Abraham Lincoln, George Custer, or Walt Whitman. According to a recently published book, Picturing Frederick Douglass, an illustrated biography of the 19th century most photographed American, we know that Frederick Douglass sat for 160 photographs between 1841 and the year of his death. Douglas traveled throughout the country and even abroad, making speeches to gain support for the cause, and nearly in every city he sat for his photos. The author of the book followed the arc of his travels looking for photos. Douglas called Rochester home from 1847 to 1872 and lived here longer than anywhere else in his life. Here, he published his newspaper, the North Star and Frederick Douglass paper. He assisted friends Amy and Isaac Post in Underground Railroad activities, hosted runaway slaves in his own home, gave speeches, supported women's suffrage alongside another great Rochesterian and hero, Susan B. Anthony, and much more before moving to Washington, D.C., after his house on South Avenue was burned down. And so naturally, the authors of this book came to Rochester, the city where Douglas spent most of his life, and the city of George Eastman in photography, in search of images for their illustrated biography. But one photograph was missed. Can you guess now what's under this cloth over here? Are you ready to see it? Well, let's take a look. This photograph was found in the special collections at the Rochester Public Library. It was part of a personal collection of photographs of an ordinary citizen, a postal carrier named William H. James. Our city historian, Christine Radowski, is now going to tell us just how amazing this discovery was and the journey this photo has taken since. Christine?
Thank you. I am so honored to be here with you today, and I'm honored to serve this great city in the dual role of city historian and manager of the local history and genealogy division of the Rochester Public Library. I can't imagine a better place than this to practice public history. The local history and genealogy division of our library has the largest collection on Rochester history in this region. We have 3,000 maps, including one hand-drawn by Nathaniel Rochester in 1811. We have 500 cubic feet of original manuscript and archive material, including a deed signed by Indian Allen in 1792, and numerous personal papers of Nathaniel Rochester and Susan B. Anthony. We have 26,000 individual photographs, and those do not include the ones that are hidden in those manuscript collections or in the 350 scrapbooks that we have in our collections. We have a dedicated staff who work every day to ensure that these historical treasures are preserved and made available to you, our citizens. And this is a monumental task. The library has been collecting these materials for more than 100 years, and some of these materials, as you may have just noticed, date more than 200 years ago. The standards for preserving these materials have changed greatly over time. At one time, they were just simply tucked away into closets to be preserved by not allowing them to be seen. But today, we know that we preserve them so that you, our citizens, can use these materials and make use of them. So our mission is to preserve and share, and that is exactly what two of our staff members were doing several months ago when they came upon this photograph. One of our library pages, Christy Hoffman, was doing her job checking the shelves in the library when she noticed that there was a scrapbook that was falling apart. She knew that it needed attention, so she carefully took it to our librarian, Sherry Crisp, who oversees our manuscript collections. And Sherry went to work trying to preserve this scrapbook. And in turning the pages, she noticed something she had never seen before. Sherry is a lifelong resident of Rochester. She's well schooled in the history of Frederick Douglass. But upon the pages of this scrapbook, she noticed a photograph of Douglass that she had never seen before. So following her instincts, she brought the photograph to me and immediately began researching and contacting Douglass scholars. And they too agreed that nobody had seen this photograph before. So we are so honored to be able to share this with you today. You know, it's amazing. It makes us wonder what other treasures could be living in our collections. And we look forward to discovering more every day. I would like to invite you to share downstairs when you were done here. There is a new exhibit that we have prepared, Sherry and I, with help from our staff, that documents not only the history of Douglas, but also of this amazing discovery and the scrapbook behind it, and the person whose scrapbook it was. So there will be cake downstairs, and you can pick up your own copy of the photograph when you go downstairs, and check out the exhibit. I would like to thank some of the contributors to the exhibit. We have some materials that are on loan or reproduced from the University of Rochester's collections and also from the Rochester Museum and Science Center. I want to thank Sherry Christ, Corinne Clark, and Barb Kohler for the work that they did in helping to prepare this exhibit. And I also want to bring your attention to a program that we will be having in the library on February 20th at 1 o'clock, when Tim Madigan will be talking about Frederick Douglass's time in Ireland. And Tim is with us here today, too, so I would like to acknowledge him. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you downstairs to enjoy the exhibit. But first, we have some more treasures for you to share among our students.
Thank you, Christine. Needless to say, we are excited about this find, and so are a few others, including the author of the book, Picturing Frederick Douglass. They had this to say: "We visited Rochester in 2012 and studied several photographs held at institutions in the city. But we didn't see your beautiful new photograph. Nobody else owns a copy of our unique Douglass photograph. Please guard it with your lives." At this time, we're going to conclude the press conference portion of the program, give you a chance to see the photograph up close, and I will now, actually, we're not going to do that because I'm late. So at this time, we will continue with our celebration. Today, it turns out that we are not the only ones excited about this discovery of his historic photograph. We've also shared it with the descendants of Frederick Douglass, great-great-great-great-granddaughters, Dharma Douglas Skinner and Zoe Douglas Skinner of East Windsor, New Jersey, who sent us a message.
Hello, Rochester. I'm Dharma.
And I'm Zoe, and we're the great-great-great-great-granddaughters of Frederick Douglass.
We're here at the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History.
And we've just been shown something we've never seen before.
We heard you've made an amazing find.
How fitting for the city of Rochester, the city of photography, and the city of Frederick Douglass.
Congratulations, Rochester.
And thank you for keeping the memory of Frederick Douglass alive.
I'm also proud to announce that our Communications Bureau is producing a documentary titled Rediscovering Frederick Douglass that will explore the interesting life of the owner of the photograph, the mystery surrounding the unique image, and provide a look into the restoration work that has been done to preserve the photo. Here's a preview.
He is one of the most recognized and celebrated faces of the abolitionist movement to end slavery in the United States. Born a slave, Frederick Douglass escaped bondage to become an internationally renowned orator and author who dedicated his life to crusading against the evils of slavery.
He was a man who was determined to be better than what the slave owners said that people of color were. He was about freedom and justice for all, and he was not ashamed of the African in him.
Now, more than 120 years after Douglass's death, a photograph thought to have not been seen for nearly a century has been rediscovered, offering a new glimpse into the famed abolitionist's life and the time in which he lived.
It was a little like finding buried treasure.
It is not typical of what one might expect from a photograph made in the 19th century.
A team of historians and photography experts have been brought together to investigate the photo's past and work to preserve its future, giving us a unique opportunity to look deeper into the life of an extraordinary man and his surprising relationship with the art and politics of early photography.
This documentary is expected to be released in March as a culminating event of Black Heritage Month celebration here in Rochester. Information about the screenings will be posted on the city's website. And we have another treat for you today to celebrate this historic discovery. One of my favorite Frederick Douglass quotes is, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." And I am proud to present 3 very strong young people who are here to honor Frederick Douglass in a way that will make him so proud. These 3 students, Eric Daniels, who I've heard many times and so very proud of him, of School of the Arts, Campbell McDade Clay of Brighton High School, and Tian-Xing Stevens of McQuaid Jesuit High School. These students, all from different schools, have a few things in common. All are past members of the Frederick Douglass Club, started by Michelle Garcia Daniels, who's here with us today. At school number 12, where Douglass's house once stood, and all are past winners of the Frederick Douglass Memorial Speech Arts Oratorical Competition founded by the late Dr. Juanita Pitts, as well as past winners of the Frederick Douglass National Speech Competition in Washington, D.C.
Hello, my name is Eric Daniels. I am from School of the Arts, and I am in the 9th grade. Today, I would like to speak with you about 3 brief speeches on today's topic, pictures. My first speech I found in the book Picturing Frederick Douglass by Zoe Trott, and a foreword by Ken Morris, who is the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass, and he introduced me to her at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati. In Cincinnati. Please consider purchasing the book Picturing Frederick Douglass as it continues to help fight against human trafficking. Heretofore, colored American citizens have thought little of adorning their parlors with pictures. Pictures come not with slavery and oppression and destitution, but with liberty, fair play, leisure, and refinement. These conditions are now possible to colored American citizens, and I think that the walls of their houses will soon begin to bear evidence of their altered relations to the people about them. Every colored householder in the land should have one of these portraits in their house and should explain it to their children as the dividing line between darkness and despair that overhung our past and the light and hope that now beam upon our future as a people. Frederick Douglass was very conscious of his image. For his first book, a white artist made a wood-carving portrait of a smiling Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass protested this image because slaves were oppressed. They rarely had a reason to smile. Despite his protest, the publisher still printed this image in his first edition. African Americans did not have a way to be able to control how their imagery was portrayed by people of the European descent. Negroes can never have impartial portraits at the hands of white artists. It seems to us next to impossible for white men to take the likeness of black men without most grossly exaggerating their distinctive features. And the reason is obvious. Artists, like all other white persons, have adopted a theory of respecting the distinctive features of Negro physiognomy. Frederick Douglass felt that possessing pictures was equal to wealth, actually better than wealth. The imagery of African Americans created by Caucasians was no longer valid. These new images allowed us to see African Americans as they really were. Their features were real. Their emotions were captured. This new innovation of pictures struck like wildfire and was now accessible to African Americans. The very pleasing feature of our pictorial relations is the very easy terms upon which all may enjoy them. The servant girl may now see the likeness of herself, such as noble ladies and even royalty itself could not purchase 50 years ago. Formerly, the luxury of a likeness was the reserved privilege of the rich and great. But now, like education and 1,000 other blessings brought to us by the advancing march of civilization, such pictures are placed within the easy reach of even the humblest members of society. Thank you.
My name is Campbell McDade Clay, and I'm going to be giving you an excerpt of Douglas's speech, The Prospect in the Future, from 1860. It is not because we fail to appreciate or lack the courage to defend our rights that we permit the existence of slavery among us, but it is because our courage is selfish, and our love of liberty is circumscribed by our narrow and wicked selfhood, that we quietly permit a few tyrants to crush a people in our midst. Whoever levies a tax upon our Bohea or young Hyson will find the land blazing with patriotism and bristling with bayonets the next morning. Let the mightiest maritime nation in the world but impress a few Yankee sailors, and our merchant ships are punctured with portholes and manned by sailors who fight like heroes. Let any nation claim sovereignty over a single root of the scraggy pine woods of Maine, or a single foot of drifted sand of some island on our western border, and Congress shall burst forth with such a pyrotechnic of oratory as to stir our warlike blood to the tune of battle. And yet millions of a foreign race may be stolen from their homes and forced into hopeless and inhuman bondage, and we either approve the deed or look on as gently as sucking doves. Our courage, our love of liberty, our statesmanship, our literature, our ethics, and our religion are all most horribly, wickedly selfish. Our national character fails to produce a single fulcrum to the lever of justice or humanity. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tian-Xing Stevens. I attend McQuaid Jesuit High School, and I'll be presenting an excerpt of What to the Slave is the 4th of July, presented on July 5th, 1852. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon here to speak today? What have I, or those that I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I, then, therefore, called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar, and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude from the blessings resulting from your independence to us? Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden be easy and delightful. For who is there so cold that a nation's sympathy could not warm him? Who so obdurate and dead to the claims of gratitude that cannot thankfully acknowledge such priceless benefits? Who so stolid and selfish that would not give his voice to swear the hallelujahs of a nation's jubilee when the chains of servitude had been torn from his limbs? I am not that man. In a case like that, the dumb might eloquently speak and the lame man leap as an art. But such is not the state of the case, and I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight which has brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. Thank you.
And finally, there are 2 other people I would like to formally thank who are the reason we are here today. Christy Hoffman is the library page who pulled the scrapbook off the shelves, and the librarian, Sherry Christ, is the person who realized the treasure that it contained. Ladies, would you please come up for a presentation? While they're coming down, I just really want to say how excited I am and thankful that I am for these young ladies discovering this great treasure. We cherish Frederick Douglass so much in our community, and I know Dr. Anderson, through his great work, is working on something else that we will present in a couple weeks. And we don't want to forget where we came from and the people that got us where we are today and those investments that they made. So Christy Hoffman, we want to present to you this certificate of recognition for your initiative and careful attention to little-known scrapbook and special collections. And Sherry Christ, we want to present to you this recognition for your dedicated service to the Rochester Public Library. Thank you all for being a part of this very special occasion. Please join us downstairs for cake and to see the exhibit that we talked about earlier, and also come and take a look at the photograph that was discovered right here in Rochester of the late, great Frederick Douglass. Thank you.